Munania, as well as the KSS Member of Parliament, CPA Julius Ruto, who is also a member of the Finance Committee of the National Assembly. So let's take a look at what's making headlines on the front page of the People Daily this morning. And it says, pay rise for greedy MPs now frozen. And it says, after backlash by angry Kenyans, salaries team its humble pie and reverses the decision to award senior state officers huge perks. The story continues on page 6 of the People Daily, even as more and more Kenyans continue to call for the reduction of the country's wage bill by, among others, slashing salaries of senior state officials. And so SRC backtracked on that new pay structure, which was to take effect on Monday, the 1st of July, an annual increment for state officers. And this is moments after President William Ruto himself directed the National Treasury not to implement the new pay structure for members of the national government, MPs, as well as senators. Honorable Munani, a very good morning to you, and many thanks for being with us today. What are your thoughts on the headline on the People Daily, first of all?
First of all, thank you for having me. Let me first of all greet the people of Murang'a and the people of Kenya at large. It's a very good morning. We are midst political, let me call it a political tiffy, because the headlines are as a result of what people are feeling. And when you look at the headlines today and what is leading in terms of the pay rise for public officers, it amounts to some amount of insensitivity towards the political turmoil. We understand that SRC has a mandate, and this mandate is not affected. It was not affected during the political crisis. And when the implementation of their mandate, that these are already things that were done public participation on. There was a debate all about it in the last SRC salaries review. But in terms of implementation, now we have to look at both the political sensitivity and the economic realities of the nation as of now. And this is why it's very important, because we can no longer finance such a budget. So we need to also look at that political sensitivity. And so I agree in terms of now backtracking what they have indicated, that they have degazetted the pay rises for the MPs.
All right. Yeah. And you take a look at page 4 of the paper, still on that, of the People Daily, and it says, senators ask Ruto to fire police boss and dissolve cabinet. And this was in that Senate session yesterday, and senators are now asking Ruto to dissolve his cabinet, saying that the protests are a result of anger on wastage, corruption, and impunity by leaders. We are with us here in studio, KSS Member of Parliament, Honorable Julius Ruto, is also a member of the Finance Committee of the National Assembly. Mheshimiwa, good morning, and thank you for joining us here.
Good morning, Michelle.
What are your thoughts first on the conversation on salaries, on salary increments, with the SRC now backtracking? But many Kenyans are saying it's a little too late. Why is this only coming after backlash from Kenyans?
Well, first allow me to get amused till now the paper of today, that is People's Daily, is carrying the pay rise for greedy MPs. Whereas the Gazette notice is not looking at the members of parliament alone, but rather the public service, both in executive, judiciary, devolution, all round. And I want to agree with my friend, the Deputy Governor for Murang'a, the fact that we are Kenyans and we are living with the fact that whatever is happening day in, day out, we are aware. We are in the midst of that. I don't know what happened of the principle of consultation. SRC is an independent commission. And yesterday, the chair, Lynn Mingich, came up and said this is in line, the notice that they gave out was in line with the Gazette notice that they published in August 2023. But then from last week, when the president declined to sign up the finance bill into an act, and of course gave a lot of reasons, including proposed cuts on expenditure, that one would touch on the wage bill, among other expenditure area, I would have wished that before they go public, they should have consulted. Treasury, as it is an institution, beside being a ministry, is an institution that can advise on matters to do with resources and financial matters. I was expecting them to have done that. Otherwise, I really want to appreciate every leader yesterday came out openly and said, look at this is not the right time to discuss this. Because such recommendation by SRC, as per the Gazette notice, they own in their desk. If they had not taken time to quickly review it and consult and make an alternative, it only called for the president. He said, say, no, look at this, Treasury, can you advise? Do your work, can you advise? You know, that was what SRC would have done with the Treasury, because that is their daily work, right. I mean, the communication. So I want to agree with the president, I want to agree with Kenyans that we are at that moment we need to begin now to discuss. The discourse is about how do we reduce our expenditure. Absolutely. So that we lessen the burden on the taxpayer and redirect the resources that we are contributing by taxpayers to development focus and be able to see how to spur our economy so that we try as much as possible to achieve economic independence.
And Monan, even as you come in, because you mentioned a lot of these measures look like insensitivity or an insult in the face of Kenyans or protesting against wastage in the country. But the question is then, is there goodwill even from the political class themselves when members of parliament are being asked to take a pay cut, when state officials are being asked to take a pay cut? Is that going to solve or begin to solve the situation?
I think what you're facing right now is we are finding ourselves in a situation where we cannot finance our budget. Because you look at the SRC and what they intended to do. They were projecting how to finance the wage bill towards 2025 financial year. And by looking at that, they were also looking at the revenue projections that were made, and which were part of the recommendations of the finance bill that was rejected. Right. So, as part of that conversation, you remember that when this conversation was being had about the pay raises and about the increases, not only now for the members of parliament, because it included all the public servants, including the sweepers and cleaners, it included even the clinical officers. It included all the health workers and the teachers. It also included even the teachers in the JSS, the teachers in the primary schools and the teachers in the secondary schools. It included all public officers. And so when this is being reviewed, it was reviewed against a projected revenue in the 2024-2025 financial year. Right. With the rejection of the Finance Bill 2024, we can no longer finance that projection that we had, that was there. So the degazettement now that has come for the SRC to withdraw this pay rise is actually now within its mandate, because it can no longer finance. Because I wouldn't put it necessarily as the SRC not being able to do its mandate and not being aware. In fact, I would call it that the SRC is very much aware of what is happening. Because the reason why they degazetted is because now they are aware that they can no longer finance what they had projected. If you cannot finance that, then you need to backtrack what you had initially proposed. It's like you having, if you have a salary of, let's say, 20,000 shillings, and you had projected that maybe you needed to expend a few coins here and there that reach 20,000 shillings. If you get a pay cut that reached to 15,000 shillings. If you ulikuanga na nyumba ya a house rent for 10,000 shillings, you have to backtrack that, and so that you live within your means. And I think that's part of what the SRC has done. All right. But the timing of it, the timing of it is what now a little bit seems like reactive. But I understand that what we need to understand is that SRC is doing what is within its mandate. Right, now we'll be discussing that in a lot more detail at the top of the hour and the state of Kenya's economy.
Looking at this paper, this is how would you state out that it's a profiling? Because the Gazette notice was not looking at members of parliament, but why? I mean, why are we filtering? But anyway,
the headlines are a reflection.
That's what we say. So that's what we say. MPs probably the media also now need to have a way of raising the nation together with responsible publishing or communication. Yes.
Right. And so we'll be discussing more on the state of the economy at the top of the hour, the tough options and the tough choices that President William Ruto has, as well as the Pandora's box essentially opened yesterday by a section of members of the Senate, including Nairobi Senator Edwin Sifuna there, on the amount of wastage and money that could be saved even from budgetary allocations to Parliament that could plug into some loopholes in the country. We're discussing that at the top of the hour. The hashtag is Newton. Let's take a look at page 3 of the People Daily. And the headline there says, Azimio calls on Ruto to hasten assent of IEBC bill. And the opposition has now set sights on the eventuality that Kenya may be headed to a general election, according to this article, after the anti-finance bill protest, a possibility that President William Ruto dispelled, really, during that publicized media interview over the weekend. But IEBC wants or demands that the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Amendment Bill of 2024 be immediately signed into law. And Honorable Ruto, let me begin with you on this one, because there has been significant progress with regard to even reconstitution of the IEBC itself. Where are we with this call?
Well, first of all, you would appreciate that there was hardly an initiation of establishing the commission where a body was put together through a motion in Parliament, and individuals were appointed to office to be able to start a process of recruiting commissioners. But then thereafter, a discussion came up later that ended up in what you call national dialogue. And it's at the protocol of national dialogue that now, again, Parliament had to re-embark back to discuss it. And as we talk right now, I'm sure in the due course, this shall come to an end, and the process again of recruiting members of the commission shall start off. Only that we feel time has gone, but because it's a political process, this is a democratic process, you would appreciate that everybody has to be included in the process, and for that to arrive at that particular quest, you need to be patient together with the people. Otherwise, if you hasten it in a given direction and then it serves as a question of lack of trust in that process, and then you know the outcome is it. But I want to assure Kenyans that probably not more than 2 weeks or so, the president would have acted on the same. Right.
There had been however,
Michelle, from the point of view as of Azimio, maybe I may not need to comment much, because of course, what do you expect of somebody whenever he sees you would want to see you out of that for him to be there? It's like a story of a hyena. Somewhat the story said, a man is walking while you're swinging his hands. A hyena follows behind, thinking and expecting that hand would fall. Right. So it's like what Azimio is saying, that like a hyena expecting this human being walking, the way he's swinging the hands, one hand will fall, and that is, he will get a meal. So I want to tell them, the government is state, and it will run, finish its term, election is going to come in 3 years to come, but nonetheless to say, I agree with them, we need to fix the issues of IEBC.
So several questions
because there are many pending issues, there are many pending issues, there are many by-election need to be undertaken. We need now to plan. You see, IEBC.
Absolutely, and that needs to be done. But the contentions with IEBC, even so as, you know, form a committee which culminated in the NADCO report. Are the recommendations of the NADCO report with regard to IEBC being taken into consideration in Parliament?
Definitely, and many other things. You see, the recommendation of NADCO is not only looking at IEBC, it recommends a lot of other things, including the oversight funds for senators and many other things. But you see, gradually these things have to be looked at. This a gradual process to be undertaken. Yes.
The concerns, even as you mentioned, Azimio, as the opposition wanting to destabilize the government, is that it's been a huge push by Kenyans and Gen Z protesters to have the IEBC reconstituted, specifically because they want to begin the process of recalling members of parliament that they feel have failed in their role. Now, some say that there could be lack of political goodwill then to reconstitute the IEBC because it will
I doubt that the president we are having today, if by his own volition, after listening to Kenyans under Article 1 and running his leadership responsibility, decided to stay away signing of the finance bill, which himself originated being the head of the government, for the sake of Kenyans. What today denies him to do his work? I mean, I want to disagree. That is purely politics, again, that you want, that some quarters want to incite Kenyans on that direction. But I want to tell you, the issues of GNCs was very clear. It was all about finance bill. The issues that came aftermath, that even culminated in wanton destruction, goonism, you know, theft of public property, lives being lost. Look at what was happening in Mombasa. Guys are bouncing on a police officer, hitting the same police officer whom they expected to protect them, whom also is expected to protect properties, was being hit by goonism. All this together has dilute the original intention. And by yesterday or yesterday evening, GNCs came out and said, look at it, this was not our intention. Our intention is that we need to look at our governance issue. We are tired of expenditure, overtaxing. We need to restructure our governance issue, cut on expenditure, and we want to have open and trust in people who have been put in place to run our affairs. We want to have an open and transparent leadership so that we're able to participate together, which is a good cause. And everybody has admitted, everybody in leadership, in religious, us as leaders, and Kenyans together even came in support of the young Kenyans and said, look, it is their time today. It is their moment today. Right. But all these other discussions, these are opportunists. How would you summarize? They are opportunists. Look at yesterday. Look at yesterday in the Requiem Mass, the way they came up all of a sudden where they had gone to the push, and they want now to go and we want to show direction. You don't need to show direction to the GNCs. They are tired of this leadership, and they wanted to have a conversation and say, look at this, we are here today. Show us the way. They know the way. They know what they want. But look at the opportunity. So whatever they are saying here, that's just opportunities.
Okay. Honorable Mnane, what do you make of this IBC conversation?
I think it's a little bit ingenuous to say that there is lack of political goodwill. But also I want to bring in the conversation that our parliament and our National Assembly needs to be a little bit more tenacious to keep up with the constitutional timelines for how to constitute constitutional offices such as the one as important as the IBC. Because remember, the timelines towards some of these issues include even the boundary reviews. It also includes putting commissioners in place so that by-elections can be held. Sticking to the timelines, and I think that's the conversation that the National Assembly is a little bit behind on, because we do not have enough time so that we can be able now to get to 2027 general elections, so that we can do both the IBC constitution, the boundaries reviews, the registration of voters, so that we can get to that end. So the National Assembly has a little bit of more work to do. And I want to say that their mandate, and especially in the first 2 years, in office, they have fell behind and they have fell short in terms of putting together this constitutional office, mainly because some of the issues that you are going to see in the next 1 year, when it comes now to after His Excellency the President has continued with this process and the National Assembly has continued this process, there are going to be a debate about the boundaries of constituencies, boundaries of solving such disputes, the wards boundaries and the rest, which is a normal process within our constitutional process. Right. But if the timelines are messed up, then it's bound to have a politicization going towards the campaigns of 2027. And this is one thing that we need to be very much aware of. So even when the Gen Zs are protesting against the issues that they feel they are injuring the progress of this country, then it also means that they have a point in terms of our awareness on what we are doing to the development of our nation in terms of our constitutional processes. And so therefore I want to make the National Assembly aware that by not adhering to these timelines, we are injuring the same process that we need to rely on to stabilize this country, to stabilize the democracy of this country, to continue having a conversation with our young voters, because they are the biggest bulk of voters that we are coming in. And this conversation that we are having, whether it's online, in the Twitter spaces, in the X spaces, everywhere, or the conversation that they have brought up, it has to amount to a political process that is constitutional. And that political process that is constitutional and democratic, it has to go through an electioneering period of representation. And that's where this is very important for them. So it also needs to be part of their conversation so that they can also understand this process. Okay, and I'd like us to wind up with the paper review, but let's take a look at page 10 of People Daily, my favorite part of the paper. And we have Wanjiku. It was a very tough load on her back, really. And he says, it's true. Life has become so expensive. I need more money. That's not Wanjiku saying that. That is a member of parliament
who is holding a salary increment, which has now been, reversed, and a whole bag of allowances, which is the Pandora's box that has been opened by a section of parliamentarians with regard to the wastage within government, the allowances, travel allowances, also seating allowances, and all this. And many Kenyans are questioning whether these are necessary, whether austerity measures can be employed in those situations. And so we'll be discussing that at the top of the hour as we take a look at the state of the economy. But let's take a look at the front page of the Daily Nation as we take a break. It says jitters as Ruto's cabinet purge looms. And as President William Ruto looks to take care of, or sort of make Kenyans happier with the disaffection among youth who've taken the country hostage, quite literally, with mass demonstrations. The president says he's said to be planning a major shake-up of his executive in a move that may see some ministers and PSs moved or even sent packing. The story is on page 4 and 5 of the People Daily. And joining us now in studio is former LSK President Eric Theory. Eric, very good morning to you. Before we take a break, what are your thoughts on these jitters? The expectations now from Kenyans are that there will be a major shake-up. There will be heads rolling. And the president said, watch this space in that interview. What are your expectations?
Thank you. Good morning. To be quite honest, I think that the country is holding its breath. The president, as a head of state and as a figure of national unity, has a big responsibility given the recent events in the country in the last 2 weeks. And I think that whatever actions he takes within the next 1 or 2 weeks will be closely scrutinized to see whether there will be some element of a reflection on his part in terms of where we may have gone wrong or what may have led to the entire country going up. Mm-hmm. I always find this characterization of what has happened for the last 2 weeks as a Gen Z sort of revolution to be, a little bit of a misnomer, because ultimately you will find out that whereas it's the Gen Z who have actually come out, whatever they are talking is and sharing and complaining about are things that are shared and felt by a great part of the population of this country. And that's why you saw that it was spontaneous, it was across the entire country. And so the response of the president in terms of whether he's going to shake up his cabinet, whether he's going to shake up his administration, and the other things that are going to happen, the realignments that perhaps may begin to happen in Parliament, would either show that this moment of reflection and this hardship has brought about a change in shift in attitude and in policy, or it still remains, as we normally say, where the forest is changed, but the monkeys still remain the same. So I think that is the big task that the president has, and naturally there would be jitters because perhaps people do not know how it's going to go. But I think that his actions for the time being will be under great scrutiny. All
right, so let's wind up with a look at the front page of the Standard newspaper. And the Senate there says to Ruto, rid yourself of excess baggage. And among that baggage, according to senators, could be a number of cabinet members and advisors. He's been asked to drop the CAS idea, which the president himself mentioned that will be put on hold, as well as disband constitutional officers. So this is part of the conversation we'll have, even as you saw senators accuse members of parliament of misusing NGCDF funds to enrich themselves, many pointing out to the fuel guzzlers that had been parked outside parliament. Others pointing out that, we have members of parliament known to be of modest means, but have acquired 1, 2, 3 things. The thing is, what's interesting for me...
Michelle, that is the reason why Kenya is today. The leaders of like Boni Kalwale, who are aging there, their ancestors, they have been there. They were members of parliament. Keep talking the same thing, shifting the goals to suit where they are. That's where they are today. He is very much aware that NGCDF is not managed by all. The law was amended severally. NGCDF is managed by NGCDF board under the Ministry of Treasury, National Planning, and the State Department of Planning. It has a committee. What only member of parliament does is only oversight. But nonetheless, to say no to defend, maybe there are some cases he knows are bad.
And so, in the event
Senate,
of mismanagement,
as we are looking at what Senate is saying, that the president need to evaluate and look at also, which I agree with them on the aspect of reducing the cost. So to Senate, because we want to ask ourselves, what is the role of Senate? Up to now, we are aware that devolution has brought up what we call devolved corruptions. All these monies we are taking to county governments. Up to now, there are many county governments that have been brought on discussion every now and then, and there's no report up to now. Even some cases have been brought to Senate, and they end up not even taking action.
Let's take a
so
break.
Sometimes these blame games is where us taking us
Let's
where
take
we
a
are.
break, because you've opened a whole Pandora's box, Mr. When we come back, we must first check the CDF issue, first of all, as we take a look at the options that the country has now with regard to the economy, with the current financial year beginning just this week. What does Kenya's economy look like, and what does it mean for you in this financial year? That conversation is coming up after the break. Do stay with us.
Your Saturday morning won't be the same again.
Launch sequence activated.
Have a nice trip.
Oh yes! As K24 TV brings you Akili and me. Ubongo Kids, Next Generation, My World Kitchen, Muddle Earth, and MI High on Kids Zone from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m.
We interrupt this program to bring you some breaking news.
Meet the team of undercover teenage spies working for a fictional version of the secret intelligence agency known as